welcome to our podcast episodes from the GetTheNet series. My name is Abina and I'm your podcast host representing the Robin nonprofit organization. This podcast series is part of the GetTheNet European-funded Erasmus Plus project, where together with 10 more international partners aim to support the personal, social, and educational development of young people and to enable them to have a voice, influence, and position in society as they move from adolescence to adulthood and independence. If you would like to hear more about Robin as an organization, please check out robinNGO.dk. This is ROBINNGO.dk. Again, ROBINNGO.dk. Today's episode is centered around the topic of youth and democracy, where together with our guest Miriam discuss the Danish active youth involvement in democracy, role of social media and AI in expressing one's voice, making a difference in the society and empowering more young adults to support democracy. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today. Here with me, I have a special guest, Miriam. In this podcast, we're going to discuss about youth and democracy and what it means to be involved and to have your voice heard in a democratic sphere. And Miriam, I would like to hear a couple of words about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a student at the IT University in Copenhagen. I studied digital design, and I'm really excited about this. I would say that I'm an activist, but yeah, I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
Thank you very much for being here today. So, to get first off, like the big umbrella picture about your personal experiences or thoughts about the topic, I'm curious to hear what do you think about the current way in which youth are involved in democracy, at least in the Danish sphere, if not internationally, but we are more than welcome to discuss about the international sphere as well.
Yeah, I think usually when I think about democracy in Denmark, at least, it's often, or Denmark is often described as a representative democracy where we select one person who will then be our politician or the one in charge of all of our political decisions. And oftentimes I feel like young people, they join these youth, what's it called? Youth policies? Parties, youth parties, where they involve themselves in politics and they try to, I don't know, get closer to the politicians and the decision making in our society. But also we have a lot of young people who are very activistic today, who are trying to make a change, and oftentimes I feel like they get somewhat neglected maybe by the politicians because they often get interpreted as young and naive, but I feel like they have a lot to say, and it's really important to also, listen and take their opinions into consideration.
That's very interesting what you just said there about the youth being seen as naive, and I'm curious if you know why that would happen, or why in a country where the society is seen such as equals, and there is not that big of a social divide between people, also like from a personal but also professional environment. Why do you think that happens?
I think one of the things that happens is that we put too much pressure on democracy only being a way of voting and not so much a way that can actually have bigger impacts on systematic change in the society. So oftentimes the young people that have a lot to say are also the people who are excluded from voting. So that also makes it a bit difficult for them to actually be heard or be taken seriously because they're already excluded from the part that is normalized in democratic debates. So I would say that's one thing.
That's really interesting. And do you think this stigma around not being taken seriously is affecting people's involvement? Like, do you think that would, in a broader picture, just make young people say, "Well, why would I even be involved? Because I'm anyways not going to be taken seriously." Or do you think that is becoming a issue around, or have you noticed it, or is it something that people are trying to push through to break that kind of pattern or behavior?
Well, I think institutional, or like if we talk about the voting process, I think more young people might not want to vote just out of protest, but I don't think that it dulls down their engagement or their what's it called, their ambition to change things, because they will always do it through some other medium, like for example with fashion or with movies or with creative projects and stuff like that. But I also know that is probably also one of the reasons why a lot of these creative like the university lines that you can choose, what's it called? The majors that you can choose here in Denmark are also getting less funding and are, yeah, basically slowly getting thrown out, because I think that's where the youth expresses themselves, where we can actually see maybe some radical change to our society that calls themselves democratic. And like, yeah, sure they are, but I feel like if you're not inclusive to everyone, then it's a bit of an umbrella term to call it a democratic state, because I feel like youth is a really big part of that as well. So I think they will just find other ways to show their engagement, but it won't be through the conventional like terms, like it won't be through debate discussion with politicians, but maybe through creative outlets. Yeah.
I am curious if at any point throughout your lifetime, let's call it that way, either from your childhood or school years, or even right now, if you've ever been in a situation where you have been actively thought about what democracy is and what you should do, or how the society should actively participate in a democratic state.
I think the way that I have thought about it is that democracy is a dynamic. I feel like sometimes when I think about democracy, it can feel like it's in a box and it's already closed off towards interpretations. But in my experience, it's really open to new possibilities and new ideas, which also, how can I explain this? Where it pushes boundaries. So whenever people pushes the boundaries of the normative society or the normative view, then they're also participating in democracy by being a part of something where maybe some people aren't necessarily, or maybe some people aren't seen as a part of society. That's where democracy can push through and actually include more people. And I think that is the most important thing with democracy, that it can be a place where we can include people and not just keep it as a box or in a system where we're only voting and then there's a representative, and this representative will be the one in charge for the next 4 years, making decisions for everyone, because that just doesn't seem like democracy to me.
That is really nicely put, and I like how you've also mentioned it earlier, that it's more of a lifestyle or a way of living than just a political view, and that definitely shifts the perspective a lot. But currently, how are people involved? So they are part of political parties. They go vote, but are you aware of any other ways in which people express themselves or their views of democracy, or how things could be changed or become better, or have different perspectives on the topic? Yeah.
Do you mean like a specific scenario that has happened, or are you just, because I'm thinking about, for example, Greta Thunberg that started climate striking in 2018, for example, where I I'm assuming she was too young to vote, but she still did something that was like political and that changed the course of, or like she pressured governments and international organizations to act on these climate changes. And she's also doing it now in regards to the Palestinian cause, which is like a youth-based, I would say, way of using democracy the right way.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about, because in a democracy, or in the ideal scenario of democracy, you of course have your freedom of speech and freedom to fight for your cause, no matter which one it is, and try to make a change in society. And I'm curious of examples or small stories that you know, either like Greta Thunberg impact, or even at a smaller local environment, like I don't know, in the city or in the country, of things that you recognize and you were like, that was really nice.
Yeah, one thing that I have been thinking about a lot is actually what has been going on in Nepal right now, because I just think that that really cements what young people can do, where they use like Discord as a platform
Yeah.
to actually demonstrate democracy, and then they overthrew the government and they actually got re-elections through Discord, which was really pretty fun and I think innovative. But also it really shows what young people coming together can actually do, and how they can influence society in a way that sometimes seems less likely when you just think of democracy as a rigid system.
Yeah, exactly. And another point that I wanted to discuss about, and this was a really, really nice way to introducing it, is social media as a tool, because we have been so used about hearing about politics talk and about all these kind of societal issues and problems being discussed in like official conferences, or being broadcasted on TV or on I don't know, newspapers, whatever. But social media has really changed a bit the perspective in which how people can be active and create huge impact in ways that has never been seen before. And I'm curious, how do you think social media plays a role, or how important of a piece is it in the overall picture?
I think social media plays a big role right now because it's so global and it's so accessible, so everyone can keep themselves updated. But I also think that there's a discourse where I think maybe companies or these big social media platforms, or the like Meta, for example, they can choose what they want to show and they can choose what they want to ban, and also some topics become I don't know, like censored because it doesn't align with the political view of a particular society. So I think there's different sides to social media, and I also think that the more aware we become, which is a great thing, but the more aware we become, the more difficult it's going to be to actually do something. I feel like a lot of people, or at least a lot of young people right now, are experiencing a type of fatigue where they don't really know how to like do something that will change the discourse of things, because there's so many things you can see on social media that is going downhill. So it's really difficult to be positive and be ambitious about change. So it's a slippery slope with the social media, but I would also like to iterate that I think social media is a great way to actually see something with your own eyes that the media doesn't really talk about that often. I would say that social media, if you use it right, it can really benefit the way we educate ourselves, and the way we also sometimes put a lot of pressure on people and how people should change maybe some of their ways, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Definitely does. And it's It's very interesting to hear about it from that perspective because it is, of course, a very powerful educational tool. But on the other hand, if we look about it a bit more like as a fisheye objective lens over the topic, it's very easy to see that misinterpretation or manipulation is also part of the picture, right? You know, it's way easier to express yourself and to create a mass following in certain directions, good or bad or whatever it might be. And in a lot of cases, it could be that also the wrong kind of information is being spread out much more freely. How do you think that could potentially be mitigated, or how youth should be approaching it, or create that kind of critical reflection?
I think it really depends on our educational system as well. I think if you read something online that intrigues you, then why not go further and read some articles about it, or read some, I think take it a notch further and go research this topic and find some media literacy about it, and maybe find some professors that have written about it.
Yes, you mean fact checking, making sure that things are actually existing and it's not just fake news.
Yeah, but I'm not only talking about fact checking, like that's great as well, but I also mean like dive deep into the topic, because sometimes you will learn more from a person who is actually educated on that topic. So when it's written on social media, sometimes it's just snippets of something that might seem interesting, and you might fall for it easily by saying this is the right way because that's what I saw on Instagram. But if you actually research it, you find all the nuances to it that are sometimes lost in social media.
I mean, seeing like the global picture, not just the details.
Yeah, exactly. And also because there's so much shadow banning going on right now. So if you research outside of social media as well, then maybe it'll give a broader perspective to a political uh, topic that is going on at the moment.
I would like to take this opportunity and talk a bit about the GetTheNet Erasmus Plus project. The project is funded by the European Union and aligned with the EU Youth Strategy 2019 to 2027, as it promotes activities that aim to engage, connect, and empower young people. Following this intent, the activities offer a multitude of non-formal learning opportunities for young adults and engagement in open dialogue. The project is developed and implemented by international partners from Denmark, Croatia, Italy, Romania, Lithuania, Portugal, Bulgaria, Spain, Latvia, Poland, and Greece. Continuing to our episode. Do you know of any examples of people using social media right now to express themselves or have their voices heard on different topics or global situations that stood out to you?
So what I'm seeing on my social media is a lot of, or the topic is usually about either Palestine or the Congo right now, where I get a broader perspective from the people who are actually living through it to see how what's happening, instead of just following the media, at least here in Denmark, which can be somewhat biased and not really tell the whole story. So that's where I think social media helps me at least get a more nuanced picture of things that are happening. So especially with the situation in the Congo right now, I see from people who are actually there interviewing people who are under oppression in a way that I would never have been able to see if I from another place, because of the media censorship.
Yeah, so there is much more exposure on topics than there was before, and you have a chance to get more personal, concrete examples, right, than seeing the polished story which is presented officially by media.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think that it gives people a bit more empathy when you see a person who's actually going through something and explaining the violence that is happening to them. When you see their faces and you hear their stories and you see their names, it really makes it more human and more I don't know, it just, for me at least, it makes me want to change society, for like to make it more justice for or like to give more justice to everyone, and not just here in Denmark, but I want to take it further. I want to make it globally, because our social media is social media is a global platform where you can see what's going on everywhere. So I think, at least for me, I think social media can be a really important tool, especially also for change.
Exactly, it's a very powerful tool, and it's really nice to hear from you that you see it as an empowering aspect. That's having this empowering aspect that makes you want to create the change, that makes you want to be heard and do something to change the things that are happening on the world. But there is also the other side of the coin, and you've also mentioned it already. But I'm curious if you'd like to elaborate a bit more into it. You were talking about social media fatigue and the negative impact that it could have mentally, for seeing all these situations, or sad stories, or seeing the realities in which different people in different parts of the world are living, and how much is it impacting them. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you deal with this, or how do you think any young adult, or basically anyone in society, should deal with this overwhelm of always having a 24/7 access to information that could severely also affect them emotionally as well?
Well, I don't really know what the individual person would do, because technology has such a grip on people, and I don't really think that it's the individual person's fault. That I know, for example, with my friends and a lot of people around me, and sometimes myself, can get a little bit addicted to social media, and you want to keep on scrolling, and you want to keep on like getting educated. But when you get bombarded with things and new information all the time, it can be difficult to get it through. Like, it can be difficult to actually get through your head, because there's too much going on at once. But I don't think that is a thing that one can change for themselves. Like, obviously you can take a social media break, but I don't think that that is really the problem here at stake. I think it's more regulations on companies, more regulations on Meta, more regulations on how marketing works in regards to getting people to continue scrolling. Or like, for example, I noticed another notch that Facebook added, where they will write that when you get a text, you will have your text, and if you don't reply to it fast enough, they will write you again saying you got a text from this person. Like, all these small things that companies are doing to keep you integrated with, or what's it called, not integrated, but addicted to maybe social media, like addicted to the apps. I think all of these things need to be more regulated, and it needs to be more focused on people and not focused on profit, which is also where the connection to democracy lies. I think a lot of the times democracy can feel like inclusivity, because people can vote for a representative, but in reality the representatives are also benefiting from profit and capital, and it's just all intertwined. So I really think it's important to state that we really need to regulate companies and capital, and actually try to benefit or make something that benefits the people more. I think here, if we do that, people won't feel like they have to be as addicted to social media, because all of these small nudging effects that is going on maybe will be regulated, or a little bit more sustainable for the mental health.
It's a very big topic, and it's a bit hard to pinpoint it, because there are so many particularities and so many things that need to be involved into it, into making sure that there is somebody that's, or like an organization, or whatever it could be that could create a change, that it's so objective and it's not swayed to take any parts in this to see any benefit from it, that all these kind of situations I find to be very, very, very complicated. But it was really nice to hear your opinion.
Yeah, it is really complicated. I agree. And I also think that's why, again, the fatigue sometimes goes beyond social media and into your daily life as well, because it can seem too big and too complicated to think about, and also to connect the dots in different areas, I think. Yeah, that's also something I'm working on. But
But also right now with the AI raise and increase in production of content as well, right now there is an abuse, I would even call it that way, of content being created and pushed. Also by, I mean, we've seen so many situations of official governments posting AI content on social media, and I'm curious, how do you feel about it? Is this something that should happen? How should it happen? Should it be used? Should it not be used? Because I've also seen in different countries around the world that there has been a lot of mass manipulation happening from AI generated content, for example, because there is a big part of society that it's not educated to spot whether that's reality or if it's AI.
yeah, oh, I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about AI, because I really dislike AI. um, I know that some people will argue that AI can also be beneficial in the medical field, and there are probably different areas where AI works, but I feel like they're really, really crossing the boundaries right now with our rights and our rights to privacy, and also I just think it's not sustainable in the ways AI work. And I know there are a lot of commercials now using AI, so everything is becoming less humane and more artificial, which is a bit sad. I think I think it makes people no, it takes away humans' artistic view or artistic skills, maybe. And I also think with AI, there's like I studied art in my bachelor. I'm doing my master's now, but I studied art in my bachelor's, and I feel really sad about AI being pushed as an artistical platform as well, where you can express art, because in reality, this has been a really big topic, at least at my old university, where we talked about the rights to art and artists actually being somewhat copyrighted, but not really, because it was AI. So I don't know how I feel about AI. I don't love it. I don't really like it.
I definitely subscribe to your opinion because there is so much overuse of it that it's becoming exhausting. I mean, it was social media, just to talk about social media right now. I mean, it was overwhelming as it was because you have so much access to information from everywhere in the world that it could be already too much. But now, if you add on top the AI content, which is enormous compared to the real human content that's created nowadays, is just becoming a bit suffocating. And it gets to a point where, even talking about all these kind of political or democratical discussions, it becomes a bit of a game. Like, besides consuming the content, you also need to be so aware of, like, is this real or is it not?
Always need to fact check it.
Exactly, yeah. Now it's become the like next level of the game, where besides like someone saying something, I need to realize, where first off, is it a human or not, and then let's fact check it.
Exactly. But I also think one thing that is a bit scary with AI, if we're talking about AI spitting out informations only, is also very biased. Like,
Yeah.
AI can only take in the things that are already here, and they can only make something new out of the things the machine already knows. So oftentimes, when people use it for exams, or when people use it for informational purposes where they want to know something different, they will often get a very biased response that can really be harmful to the already marginalized people in the society. So oftentimes it can be theorists that are maybe white men from the West, or like people who are already at the top of the food chain, or no, not the food chain, sorry, at the top of the social hierarchy. So it really also starts another conversation about how much influence do we want to give AI in regards to how harmful it can actually be to the causes that, or the protests that we have already, I feel like, or that we are already working towards to change the world, and also to change equality for this, like for both women and men, and for like colored and whites, and for refugees and non-refugees, like all of these things that are already really, really hard to change, that I would say people really are trying to change, is something that AI is setting us back on right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I'm agreeing with you, and it's probably something that a lot of people are not aware of, especially people that maybe are not on the tech side or do not know how AI actually works. But just knowing the pure information that AI is created upon information that already exists and what you feed to it in the back end, and it does not have the capabilities of a human mind or a human being to discern or just critically reflect on things or imagine a future scenario besides what has already happened already. It's becoming a huge fallback on trying to create changes.
Yeah.
In the ideal world, let's imagine it like everything is going according to to the well-being of the society. What do you think the ideal scenario of youth being involved in democracy should be like?
Oh, I don't know what the ideal view would be for democracy in general, but I think that young people, if they were more involved, or I feel like they are involved, but if they were taken more seriously in their involvement, I think democracy would be a little bit more. I think it would be closer to the radical essence, like a space where you can disagree, or where there's more equality, and it would also be less high. There would be less hierarchy, and maybe a little bit more inclusion of the supplementary parts of society. So I think those that are usually excluded from power, for example, would be more included. And I think young people would also be more, they would make it more imaginative and diverse, and maybe oriented in regards to long-term justice rather than the short-term interests that I feel like we're really seeing today with the capital and everything. So in short, I think it would look a little bit more alive and maybe thrive on the voices that disrupt status quo.
That's really nicely put. This leads me to my last question of today, which is, what message would you send out to young people to just to know that their voices do matter and it could make a difference, and just to become involved? What would you tell them?
I would say that their voices do matter, and democracy depends on their voices, and especially those who don't feel like they have any voice or a matter in the saying. So yeah, their voices matter, because democracy can only exist when people who are told that they don't matter actually speak up. And if I think if we want to quote Rangxia, the, the hatred of democracy is the hatred of the idea that anyone can step into the political arena. So when you speak, you keep democracy alive. And power always tries to convince you that you're too young, or too naive, or too small. But real democracy only begins when people like to refuse and accept the silence, or refuse to accept the silence.
That is very beautiful and very empowering. And I really hope that for everybody that is listening to this podcast, or for everybody that gets a chance to have a talk with you at any point, they would really get to see that it's important to be active and to put yourself out there and create change in the world. But this has been an absolute honor, and it's been really nice to have this conversation with you, Miriam. Thank you very much for being here with me today.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channels and share with a friend. You will find more information about our activity on robinNGO.dk. This is ROBINNGO.dk. Again, this is ROBINNGO.dk. I'll catch you in the next episode.